Hi, welcome to the Rittner Floral School in Boston, Mass. I'm Dr. Steve Rittner, and it's a pleasure to welcome you into one of our classrooms today. The theme of this particular video I think you're going to find interesting. We're going to be exploring a material that I think is very, very neat. It's a lot of fun to work with, and it has a lot of potential to change your designing and make it look interesting in a different way. The material that we're talking about today is going to be something called Gold Grevillea. And we're going to be showing you in this brief video some examples of designing done with Gold Grevillea foliage. And I think you're going to find it kind of neat. First of all, what do we mean by Gold Grevillea? Well, this is Grevillea foliage. It's very, very neat stuff. First of all, look at it. It's kind of pretty. It's got a very, very pretty green color. But when we turn it over to the other side, look at this. It's like magic. You have green on one side and you have gold on the other. That's why we think this stuff is very, very interesting. Also, notice another part of the characteristics of this particular foliage. It happens to have these kind of interesting shapes. It's got these oval shapes, but here and there it's got these kind of oddball finger kind of shapes that are just interesting and weird. I think it's a very, very intriguing foliage, and you can use this stuff to come up with some very, very interesting results. And we're going to be showing you in this video some examples of the use of Gold Grevillea in some of your winter designing. Winter designing meaning designing that could be suitable for Christmas, and it also could be suitable even beyond Christmas into early winter, and I think you're going to enjoy it. Here is a good example of a very nice design incorporating some of our Gold Grevillea. Let's take a look at it. Isn't it pretty? If you notice, the whole base has been greened with the Gold Grevillea. It's absolutely great. In this particular case, we're making use mostly of the green section of the Gold Grevillea, and this is forming essentially the background of our design. It comes over here, it comes over here, it's here, it's here, it permeates the whole thing. And then we're mixing a few other things in with the Gold Grevillea that really work so nicely in terms of our designing. If you look at the design carefully, you're going to see a variety of different kinds of flowers. We have some of our lisianthus here, we have some of our spray roses here and here, we have some of our lilies, our Asiatic lilies in here, and also some Grevillea flowers worked into this design as well. A few silver millimeter balls worked in here as well, gives a very, very pretty effect. A few of our carnations mixed in. It is a lovely design. It is a design that works very, very nicely seasonally. It works well for the Christmas season and beyond. But make no mistake about it, my viewer, the basis of this design is our Grevillea foliage, and you can see it being used very, very clearly throughout the arrangement. Now let's go to something that also incorporates Grevillea, but does it a little bit more in a slightly different way, and very, very effective. Now if you look at this one's a big one. It's a lot larger. It also happens to be a water-based design, but it uses some of these same elements. Let's analyze this a little bit. First of all, the use of our Gold Grevillea. It is being used almost to create line here. We've got a piece of Grevillea over on this side with green, and then we've got a piece on this side focusing on the gold. So we have green over on this side, gold on this side, a little bit of gold showing over on this side as well. Now the rest of the design is a melange of all kinds of seasonal colors and materials. We have here, for example, our peppermint type carnation all clustered together. We have some of our white roses here and here, some of our pink spray roses. We have more of the Grevillea flower coming up here, shooting through the middle to give an interesting effect. Some of our crab apples over here, and then dogwood shooting up to give a very, very tall kind of effect to this design. This is a fairly good sized design. It is a big design that would work very, very well in an entry area, in a bay window. It is a striking design, but let's make no mistake about it. What really, really is interesting about this piece, when you look at it, the thing that strikes you the most first off is the use of our Grevillea foliage over here, around here, and around here. It defines the overall picture of our design. So you can see, my viewer, that this foliage has got a lot of interesting potential. We can use it very, very interestingly because of the colors and because of the shape. But wait, there's more. If that weren't enough, we can do some other really, really cool things with our Grevillea foliage. And I want you to see this because our staff here at Rittners has been working very, very hard to come up with some ideas for you that we think you're going to find really interesting and neat using this amazing kind of material. Now, look at this one. Notice what's been going on in this particular one. In this particular design, Grevillea is not being used so much to green a base. It's not being used to define the parameters of the design, but rather inside the design. Now, this is an approach that has become very, very popular recently. The concept of taking foliage and putting it on the inside of glassware, adding our water to it to come up with an interesting effect. Many designers are doing it with aspidistra leaves, tie leaves, and so forth. Well, the very nature of this particular foliage, the fact that we have both the gold as well as the green, we can come up with some really cool effects using this stuff. And again, we have a winter appropriate design with a mixture of things. We have some of our pink roses in here. We have some of our glass millimeter balls, some Grevillea flowers worked in here, a little lisianthus worked in here. But the thing that makes it really visually interesting in my book is the fact that you've got a cylinder here, and in the cylinder we've got this Grevillea, and notice how it's even giving us the feeling of almost a diagonal kind of effect. It gives very, very interesting use of color and very, very interesting use of texture. But we can play with this with other kinds of shaped containers as well. Now here we have a similar use of our Grevillea. It's being used to fill in on some glassware. But notice in this particular case, the Grevillea happens to be used in a rectangular shaped container. And again, it defines it. But rather than going at a kind of interesting diagonal here, this one is a little bit more up and down. But we're not going totally directly up and down. It's kind of at a slight angle here. And we're allowing some of the green to show as well as the gold aspect. As far as the top of the design is concerned, it is again very, very seasonally appropriate, making use of our white Asiatic lilies over on this side, some of our Grevillea flower, which is an interesting flower to play with, some of our red spray roses clustered over in here, and just to add a little bit of holiday cheer and to make sure we feel seasonally appropriate, some of our red millimeter balls. So you can see, my viewer, that that really works so nicely in terms of giving us a feel for the use of this particular product. Now, there are plenty of different kinds of glassware out there, and we want to show you a couple more examples of this in use. We've played with the cylinder, we've played with the rectangle. How about something like this? There are some very, very neat oval type containers that are available on the market. We love them here at Rittners. We think that they are visually very, very interesting and kind of fun to play with. And notice that the same trick here of using the Grevillea under the water level inside glassware is being incorporated in this particular winter piece. Once again, we have Grevillea, we've got the gold showing, we have a little of the green showing. We're using it more on a horizontal, really, if you think about it here. And then a cluster of all kinds of things shooting out of the container, ranging from Grevillea flower to some of our amazing gerbera. And these mini gerbera are seasonally appropriate with both white and red mixed into them, some of the crabapple and some of the spray roses. Incidentally, this wonderful product, the Grevillea, the Gold Grevillea, is available to us courtesy of the folks of Blooming of Beloit, Wisconsin. They're the source of this particular product, and they kindly made it available to us. And I think you can see that this kind of product gives a very, very interesting kind of feel to our designing. Now, I want to show you one more example of the use of some of the Grevillea, particularly in glassware. because I think that it just accentuates so well some of the things that we can do with this great product. And I'm just going to move, my viewer, I'm just going to move some of this over just a little bit and bring out one more piece, because again, it shows that we can play with this. In this particular case, we are playing with the Grevillea, but we're doing it on a larger scale. Notice the design on the left. It happens to be big, it happens to be showy. It definitely feels holiday-ish, because it definitely gets in the feel of Christmas season and beyond. But the design on the left is in a big column. And once again, we're making use of the Grevillea. The Grevillea is being placed, in this particular case, more on a vertical kind of plane. Excuse me, and you'll notice that placing it on a vertical plane upside down, it gives a very, very cool effect. Some of the Grevillea is also being used sculpturally in the design, placed over here. And then a melange of all kinds of interesting and beautiful things. We have some of the Grevillea flower. We have some of it in a dyed format here. Also, these things are available from the folks of Blooming of Beloit in Beloit, Wisconsin, along with our curly willow that they make available, some of the wax flower. And then they play very, very nicely with some of our white roses. And then we have some of our crab apples worked in here in terms of the little berries that you see coming here on the side. But notice, folks, the commonality of all of these designs is the use of our Gold Grevillea as something that can enhance our glassware and designing in water base. So to summarize, my viewer, you can see that this is a very interesting foliage. You can use your Grevillea foliage for something, greening a base and coming up with an effect that feels very, very different than traditional kinds of foliages in terms of greening. You can use it to create some sort of a frame on your designs, but we can also make use of it in terms of our glassware. Well, our staff here at Rittners has worked very, very hard to produce this particular video for your enjoyment. We hope you found something interesting and have a few new design tips that you can use in your designing. On behalf of all of us here at Rittners Floral School, I'm Dr. Steve Rittner. It is a pleasure to welcome you into our school, and we hope that you enjoyed this brief presentation and have taken away a few ideas that you can use in your designing as well. Thank you for coming in and visiting with us today.